Scott Pilgrim is this really popular comic book, and it's also turning into a movie, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And of course, since we're here in this amazing GRTV living room that we've created, it's also a game. Cool. But first of all, the Scott Pilgrim, what's the concept? What is Scott Pilgrim actually about?
It's more or less a love story, but it's a love story seen through the lens of every cool 8-bit and 16-bit game that you remember. So the comic book is actually ripe with just all kinds of inspirations from old classic video games, which is kind of a unique blend because it's set in this world. Actually, it's set in Canada, but still in like kind of a parallel world where every cool thing you remember about video games actually exists. So superheroes, superpowers, yeah, there's just no limits. And it's a strange mix, but it really works.
So how do you make a game about games? Really? If you're going to turn Scott Pilgrim into a game, obviously there's 8-bit and 16-bit.
Well, first of all, it's a brawler. It's an old school brawler where you walk from left side of the screen to the right side and you beat up everyone who meets you. And that in itself is not really original, but the cool thing is that just like the comic book series, they've had like just ripe opportunity to copy every cool little thing that they remembered from their favorite games. So the game is just chock full of like small details that people who were just playing all these games on the Nintendo 8-bit box and Super Nintendo and Sega Mega Drive will just remember and freak out over.
We take all that reference stuff that's just cosmetic stuff. Let's take that away and we have the game left. Good?
Yeah, it's a good brawler. It's a solid brawler, or at least it's a solid brawler if you play it in single player, and it's a really good brawler if you play it in multiplayer. The one-player part is kind of hampered by the balance being kind of off, because it's a really, really, really hard game if you play it yourself. You will get your ass beat mercilessly. And there is this level up structure where you level up each individual character. So you will probably have to really just beat up the same dudes in the same levels again and again and again to level up and then advance to the later levels, which is kind of sad because one of the cool things about the game is like seeing the new levels and seeing all the small details. I mean, the first time you just see all this creativity that has gone into it, it's really amazing. In multiplayer, of course, you don't have these problems. And in multiplayer, there is this thing where you can actually almost juggle everything in the game world. Like you can pick up signs, you can pick up all sorts of weapons and you can throw them and they will bounce around. And that also goes into the enemies. You can pick up the enemies. And in multiplayer, you can actually throw an enemy in the air and everyone else can just start juggling him to hell. And it makes the game far easier. Also, you're able to pull off like team attacks in multiplayer. So it makes for a more enjoyable game and I would also say a far easier game if you play it in multiplayer.
How does it compare? How does it stand? Does it stand out on PSN like a really good game that everybody that's watching should get? Or
It of course depends on your background in games. If you have been playing the old 8-bit and 16-bit consoles, yes, this is definitely a game that you should get. Everything from the references that we talked about to the graphics, which are done by, I believe his name is Paul Robertson, who's just like an amazing pixel animator with his own style, to the music, which is done by a really good sounding chip-tune band. I mean, it's just a whole retro package brought into this new service in just the completely right way. So definitely get the game if you're into a good brawler, and completely unmissable if you remember playing the old systems.